Welcome back to Anime Rambles. Today we're talking about the three best power systems in anime. Uh, Little information, this is all my opinion. You're allowed to agree or disagree. This is my personal top three pick. As well as this video is all non-scripted, so if I contradict myself, just let me know down in the comments and I'll feel free to address you or whatever the comment may be down below. Thank you for watching. All right. So first system I want to talk about is Nen from Hunter x Hunter. Now, Nen is a highly diverse system where the users who are practitioners of it can diverse in a whole bunch of different directions. But the main thing comes from this water divination test, where every Nen user takes right at the beginning when they're learning Nen. Basically, you put a leaf in a water, and depending on what happens, you get placed in one of these categories either enhancement, emission, manipulation, specialization, conjuration, or transmutation. Now, depending on where you get put, you have an affinity for one of these attributes, and you can subdiverse into one of the ones on the sides, or you can do one of the further away ones. But you have a larger affinity towards whatever is the closest towards your affinity Nen type. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about some of the practitioners of Nen. Specifically, we're going to be talking about Hisoka and Chrollo because they capture both opposite sides of Nen so perfectly. In Nen, each user develops something called a Hatsu, which is kind of like their personal take on what their Nen ability is. It's what they use to fight or do something. Hisoka's Hatsu is called Bungee Gum, and it has the properties of both rubber and gum. And with this simple technique for combat, he is able to be a master manipulator in combat, being able to use the environment, his opponents, himself, all controlled with the bungee gum in the perfect combination to win almost every fight that he's a part of. And Hisoka does this better than any character in the series, being able to refine this one basic ability to a point where he just puts each and every opponent pretty much in the ground. Now, I could talk about on and on how this is impressive, but let's also talk about our other person on the screen who does the exact opposite. Chrollo Lucifer is the opposite of Hisoka. Instead of focusing on one simple ability and refining that to a point, Chrollo decided to go with an incredibly complicated ability that he can use as a toolbox in any scenario. Chrollo's ability, I believe it's called Thief's Book, allows him to complete, I believe, 10-ish different conditions. It's one of the things that make Nen more powerful or less powerful. If you place a condition on your Nen, you can enhance it to different degrees. If you want to have a more powerful Hatsu, you have to put a condition on it. Great examples would be Chrollo's book, where he has to make his opponent fulfill different conditions in order to activate his Hatsu, or Kurapika's chain prison, where if he uses it on a member who is not part of the Phantom Troop, he will literally die. Different members put different people put different restrictions on their own Nen in order to make it more powerful. The more restrictions that are on it, the more powerful it becomes, which is why Chrollo's book is so immensely powerful. But it's also why only Chrollo can use it, because he is a master tactician. Now, there has been many different examples of Nen in the series of Hunter x Hunter, and it would be insane to talk about all of them because there are so many. But the way you personally use Nen, your own creativity and your combat prowess dictates how expertly you manipulate your own Nen use. It doesn't matter if you have a lot of Nen or a little bit of Nen. If you place the right conditions on it and you use it in a smart way, even someone with almost no Nen can refine it to a point where they can use it as a precise dagger in order to just target your opponent's weak points. One of the great examples of this is Knuckles' APR. APRs and Nenhatsu that basically summons a little thing that keeps track of Nen debt, pretty much. So when Knuckle hits you with a Nen punch, his Nen doesn't do damage to you. It gives you that power. And then you, until you hit him again and pay back that Nen, he will not be able to take damage from you because you will have to pay back the Nen he gave you. But if his APR acquires debt every, I believe it's 10% every 10 seconds, I believe, it'll keep increasing until you physically can't return the Nen back to Knuckle. And then, boop, your Nen use gets shut off, and you can't use Nen for a whole month. Which, if this happens in combat, that's over. You don't have Nen against a Nen user, you are not going to win. Now, with this system, it creates some incredibly diverse fights and incredible storytelling potential. And it's Nen in the story-wise, the way it enhances everything that's going on is really incredible. There are three things that make a power system great. One is how it makes the fights interesting, and you can see yourself and what you would use in this different power systems. That's one. How it enhances the story. Your power system should never be a burden to the story. It should only be something to enhance it, to bring it forward, to push it to that next level. And that's two. And finally, your power system should be able to intrigue the reader. If the reader feels bored by this power system, or you don't make it interesting, it's not going to be well fleshed out or good, because no one's going to care about it. Now, let's move on to our next show. So we are going to now talk about triggers in World Trigger. Now, triggers are very unique. They're a lot like Nen, actually, except even more diverse. So each trigger has a slot of 8. Now, this is just the standardized ones for the border agents in World Trigger, but there's a whole bunch of different modules, guns, swords, energy that flies towards each other, jump pads, shields, you name it, that you can put in these different modules in order for you to become a better border agent, in order for you to basically use what you have to your own advantage. This is just an example one. This is a B rank border agent, and he uses a gunner trigger, which he uses 2 grenade launcher triggers that he can use at the same time, as well as another gun trigger, so he can defend himself if he gets in close quarter combat, and then a couple of defense triggers to keep himself safe from snipers, and then one optional trigger, which he can use for some sort of utility purpose. Now, on top of these triggers, where when the agents are fighting against each other in mock combat, it's a great way for them to build up tactics. It's a great way for them to build up strategies with their teams and against other people. But where World Trigger really shines is not in its power system specifically, but in the way they train their border agents against threats that are against them. Since border agents train by competing against each other, as well as the general neighbors who come in, the low class ones, the ones who are basically try-on monsters, being able to see your border agents and have them have a skill set where they can fight against huge, like, Goliath-sized monsters, as well as other soldiers who also wield triggers from the other side, it gives them an incredibly diverse skill set, and it keeps combat very interesting and engaging. Now, we're also going to talk about the 2 substandard skills, power systems in World Trigger. Jin is the perfect example of both of these. The 2 things that add to it are side effects and black triggers. Now, Side effects are something where if you have a high Trion load, which is the energy system in World Trigger, the more you have of it, the more you can do. If you have a ridiculously high Trion count, you will pretty much gain something called a side effect. Side effects aren't superpowers or anything, they are like extra sensory abilities. So imagine your five senses and it would enhance one of these in some sort of way. Now, Gene has foresight. He can see the future of people he's around. Not the not like Katakuri from One Piece. He can see vague ideas of what's going to happen in the future. It's not that solid, which keeps it in the realm of reality. There's another character who can uh, people's negative emotions physically hurt him. So he's not the most emotionally stable. And another character can hear so well that he can even hear sounds that are imperceivable. And this hearing is a huge advantage in combat. But that's kind of what side effects are for just extra bonuses on top of your Trion load. And then finally, there's black triggers. Black triggers are these super powerful ultimate triggers that have an innate alternate ability. And because of this, they gain these innate alternate abilities because the wielders before, who's ever wielding them right now, died and the rest of their life force went into their triggers, turning them black. And it gave them some sort of advantageous attribute that only certain people who are compatible with the triggers can wield. And I think all these reasons make World Trigger's power system incredibly adaptable and fantastic to watch because of how many strategies you can implement with such an adaptable system. Again, it makes the story a lot more interesting with all the fights that are going on. I can see myself and like what I would pick if I was in World Trigger. And finally, it enhances the storytelling so much more because of the way the trigger system works. It makes me engage with the series a lot more. World Trigger heavily relies on its power system, and for good reason. And moving on to our final power system, it is none other than JoJo's. We talking about stands today. Hamon kind of lackluster. I really like what they did with it in part 2, but from part 3 onwards, we had a far superior power system, and that's what we're going to be talking about now. So we're talking about stands, baby. Now, stands are an incredible power system, and they can be written either very right or very wrong. And most of the time, Araki does a great job with stands. Now, unlike with other power systems, having reoccurring villains who have stands is not a great move. Why? Because most stands are highly specific, and the entire fight hinges on figuring out the enemy stand before you get taken out. And I would say that's probably 90% of fights in JoJo's, trying to figure out your opponent before they take you down. I can give countless examples of this. The shark dude who jumped around from water source to water source in part 5. Um, Again, Superfly from part 4, who is literally just a tower that traps people in it and can bounce back damage. So many stands are hyper specific. Now, some of the best fights happen when we have one of our main characters who doesn't typically have a hyper specific stand. They have pretty generalized stands that contribute. What am I saying? Control one attribute of something almost completely. This is Giorno stand, who can just manipulate life, turn things alive, turn yeah, that's pretty much it. Turn things alive, manipulate the things he brings to life in different ways. And Typically, our protagonists have these generalized stands and they go up against these hyper-specific stands. One of my favorite fights in the series was when they were fighting the Ice Dude in part 5, who was just skating along the highway. Now, he did not have a hyper-specific stand, and it was a great fight. And sure, there could be recurring fights with him, but most stands are so broken overpowered in just one aspect that they couldn't do what they do multiple times to multiple opponents. Stand users have to be able to take out their opponent the first time. Once you learn what your opponent can do, that's it. And in the one-on-one fights that don't reoccur in JoJo's, where they go from villain to villain, it's a great way to enhance the storytelling. Now, here's why stands are so good in JoJo's, even though I've talked a lot of negatives about them so far. One, without stance in JoJo's, the whole series falls apart. You can't have people with just guns or normal abilities fighting against each other. It would just make the whole series boring. JoJo's has a very linear plot. It's very loosey goosey. It's not the most intriguing, but the stand fights and the engaging aspect of the characters trying to outsmart each other is incredible. Stands definitely make the story. Without stands, I don't think it would have the following that it does. In fact, I'm sure of it. I could see myself having a stand. There's so many things you can think of, and like so many different cool things you could imagine. And stands for sure enhances the storytelling. I feel like having a character develop a stand, or part 4 Koichi developing his act 1, 2, and 3 was great storytelling potential, and I think it definitely added to the story. But yeah, these were my top 3 power systems in anime. Thank you guys for watching. Comment down below what your favorite power system in anime is, and leave a like on the video, and subscribe if you have more content like this. My goal is to hit 100 subscribers by the end of March. Not sure if we can make it happen, but every subscriber counts. So please subscribe, give it a chance. There's plenty of other good content on the channel, and thanks for sticking out for the whole video. See y'all in the next one. Bye-bye.